It was a crisp autumn morning in Virginia. At a quiet veterans nursing home nestled near the Blue Ridge Mountains, 98-year-old Walter Jennings sat by his window. A World War II Navy veteran, Walter was frail but clear-minded. Each morning, he saluted the flag from his wheelchair. But today, something different happened. Arya Monroe, a young nurse who had cared for Walter for over a year, entered his room holding a letter. Her eyes sparkled with disbelief. "Walter," she said gently, "you've been invited to a veterans tribute ceremony by President Donald Trump." Walter adjusted his glasses with a trembling hand. "Trump, the president wants to see me?" Arya nodded, smiling. "Apparently, your service story reached the White House. He wants to meet you." Walter chuckled softly. "I never thought I'd live to see another president, let alone shake hands with one." His roommate, Samuel, an 84-year-old Korean war vet, grinned. "Just don't kick the bucket before you get there." Everyone laughed, but Walter understood how little time remained. He'd seen comrades lost in Okinawa, men swept overboard in storms, and had remained silent about much of it. He never wanted praise, but this invitation stirred something deep inside. "I'll go," he whispered, saluting the letter. "For the boys who didn't make it home." Arya wiped a tear. She had a feeling this trip would be unforgettable. 3 days later, Walter boarded a private military jet, joined by Arya and a young Secret Service escort, Agent Ron Wyatt. Despite his age, Walter carried himself with quiet dignity. Back straight, medals gleaming on his blazer. As the plane took off, he looked out the window. 78 years since I flew over the East Coast. Last time, I was heading to war. This time, Arya said, squeezing his hand, it's a mission of honor. Ron looked intrigued. You served in the Pacific Fleet? Walter nodded. USS Indianapolis. I was a radio operator. I survived when she went down. Many were taken by sharks. I held on to debris until a seaplane found us. Even Ron, trained in stoicism, was stunned. You were on the Indianapolis? Walter nodded again. Most don't believe me, but I remember every second. Arya whispered, Then the president needs to hear this. America does. Walter stared into the clouds. His heart beat strong. This wasn't about recognition. It was about legacy. Upon arrival in Washington, Walter was met with unexpected attention. Reporters lined the tarmac as his wheelchair descended the ramp. Cameras flashed. Mr. Jennings, how does it feel to meet the president? Walter simply waved, staying quiet. Inside the White House Rose Garden, a small ceremony awaited. Flags, folding chairs, and veterans of all ages. Walter, now in full Navy dress, was placed in the front row. Arya leaned in. You look like a hero. He smiled. Just a lucky old sailor who lived long enough to be remembered. A hush fell as President Trump emerged, wearing a Navy suit and red tie. He walked straight to Walter, saluted, and extended his hand. You must be Walter Jennings. Walter, knees trembling, stood to return the handshake and salute. I am, he replied, and I've waited 78 years for someone to ask about the boys who didn't come home. Trump's expression softened. Then tell me everything. The world needs to hear it. Trump led Walter to the podium and handed him the microphone. Speak for those who can't. Walter hesitated, then spoke. I was 20 when I boarded the USS Indianapolis. I sent messages across the seas, not knowing one day my message wouldn't be heard. When we were torpedoed, hundreds went into the Pacific. We floated for days. Sharks circled, hope faded, but we held on, for family, country, and each other. Silence swept the crowd. Arya wiped away tears. I don't deserve praise, Walter continued, voice cracking. But I ask this nation, never forget those who paid with their silence. President Trump placed a hand on Walter's shoulder. Your voice has honored them. After the ceremony, Trump invited Walter to the Oval Office. Seated beside Arya, Walter looked around in awe. So many decisions made in these walls. Trump nodded. And too many names forgotten. That's changing. We're launching an initiative to document the stories of forgotten veterans. And we want you to be the face of it. Me? Walter asked, surprised. At my age? Exactly, Trump said. Your age isn't a weakness. It's a witness. Walter glanced at Arya, then nodded. If it means they'll be remembered, I'll do it. The next morning, Walter's speech had gone viral. The clip of a frail veteran saluting the president, followed by his heartfelt words, swept across media. Salute for the fallen trended worldwide. High schools held moments of silence. Children who didn't know much about World War II now recognized Walter's face. Back at the nursing home, Samuel grinned. You're famous now, old man. Walter smirked. Took me 98 years to be an overnight sensation. But he remained grounded. He never wanted fame, only remembrance. Trump's team contacted Arya. Schools wanted Walter to speak. He agreed to a few virtual talks. In one, a boy named Ely asked, Mr. Jennings, were you scared in the water? Walter paused. Yes, but courage isn't not being scared. It's surviving anyway. That quote spread too. Yet Walter sensed time was short. He had one final thing to say. That night, Walter asked Arya for a pen and paper. I want to write one last letter. To whom? She asked. To the future, he replied. He spent hours writing, stopping often to wipe tears. When done, he sealed the envelope and handed it to Arya. Promise me, if something happens, you'll make sure the president gets this. She nodded. I promise. Walter leaned back with a faint smile. Then I've done what I came to do. 2 days. Later, Arya found him gazing quietly out the window. You okay, Walter? She asked. He turned slowly. I think I'm ready. For what? To join my boys. That night, Walter passed away peacefully. The nursing home held a vigil. Flags were lowered. President Trump issued a personal statement of condolence. But it wasn't until Arya remembered the envelope that the story's final chapter began. At the White House, Trump received the letter with solemn hands. As he read, his expression shifted. Surprise, stillness, then tears. He placed it on his desk and addressed the press. I received the last words of Walter Jennings. I'll read them now. The room fell silent. If this is my final message, let it be this. Never forget what it means to serve. Not for medals, but for one another. Don't build statues or plaques. Plant trees, one for every life lost. Let them grow as silent sentinels of peace. And if you ever wonder if one life can matter, remember an old man who floated with ghosts and found purpose again. I salute my commander-in-chief. I salute the next generation. Carry the torch. Don't. Let it burn out. Silence followed, then applause. Walter's words weren't just heartfelt. They became history. Trump called an emergency cabinet meeting. "We're launching the Jennings Grove Initiative." "What's that, sir?" an aide asked. "We'll plant a tree in every state for every fallen veteran, starting with the 879 lost aboard the Indianapolis. Each tree will bear a name." The idea spread quickly. Families, schools, and veterans groups joined. Donations poured in. The first tree was planted on the White House lawn. Trump dug the hole himself, placing Walter's photo at its base. "This," he said, "is how memory lives." Months later, Arya spoke at a tree planting in Virginia. Holding Walter's uniform hat, she said, "I was just a nurse, but he made me a witness to history." She told his story: shark-infested waters, radio messages, and a final handshake with the president. But his greatest act, she said, voice breaking, was proving that even silence can echo forever, if we choose to listen. At the nursing home, Samuel sat beside Walter's empty bed. "Told you not to croak before the big stuff happened," he muttered with a tearful grin. He placed a folded note in Walter's drawer. "See you topside, sailor." Then he saluted. "They'll never forget you. Neither will I." Across the nation, students planted trees, each named after a fallen veteran. In Kansas, a third-grade girl stood by her tree. "I'm taking care of your tree, Mr. Mills," she whispered to the wind. The Jennings Grove became more than a tribute. It became a living classroom. 1 year later, at Arlington, Trump hosted a national tribute. He reread Walter's letter and placed a copy